Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Welcome once again to Hang On Supi, a show powered by Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio. I'm your host, Caleb Supi Spinner, and today I am honored to be talking with Pat Chun, the athletic director for Washington State University. But don't let this Cougar background fool you. He started off an Ohio State Buckeye. Welcome to the show, Pat. Good to have you.
I mean, technically, I know you're in your freshman year, but it's the Ohio State.
Right. So, how could I make such a grave mistake?
No, you can't use that too far outside of the state of Ohio. So when I'm in the safe confines of another Buckeye, I'll bring out hey, before we get going, you didn't tell me that your nickname was Supi. You're gonna have to give me a little background on that.
Yeah. So there were two areas where the title of the show came from. Number one, my middle name is Supik. It was named after my great-grandfather who passed away just before I was born. And they called him Soup Bones in the Army. I was a lineman growing up, so I was Big Soup instead of Soup Bones. And then I remember when I was a kid, Mom obviously graduated from Ohio State. And when we used to sing Hang On Sloopy, she would switch Sloopy to Soupy just to make me laugh. And so when thinking about the name for the show, I had to go with that. Hang On Soupy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is a very, very acceptable background for a story. So am I allowed to call you Soupy, or you?
You are absolutely allowed to call me Soupy. I would be offended if you didn't, especially after hearing that.
Yeah. All right. Good job, Soupy.
Thank you. So we'll just get right into here because I've got so much to talk with you about, so many exciting things that you've done in your career so far. Currently at Washington State, the athletic director, one of the highest positions, if not the highest you can go in an athletic department. What does a typical day of work look like with you? And before you say it, we've had people on the show have said, well, nothing's typical right now. What taking away the COVID aspect of things, what would a normal non-pandemic day look for you?
Well, I think the aspect of the job, one of the aspects I enjoy the most is that no 2 days really look alike. Just look at the calendar year, depending on where you're at, you have different sports in season. And then if we weren't in a pandemic, I'm a person who's more externally facing. So I'd spend a little bit more time outside the office, whether it's fundraising. I'm the type of AD that likes to go to practice and tries to intermingle with our student athletes and coaches as much as possible. So the nice thing is there aren't many days that look alike, but a typical work day for me is I'm an early riser anyway. So I like to get up, get my workout in, try to be at the desk at an appropriate time to try to knock some stuff out in the morning. And then I guess in the pandemic age, I spent a lot of time at my desk on the computer, whether it's Zoom or phone calls, and try to meet and move this athletic department forward. But fun job nonetheless, just because you get to interact and you get to interact with a lot of people. And I think that creates a fun environment for me personally.
And we'll talk a bit about interacting and how it played a role in your jobs and in the future of the show. But I want to flash back to your time at Ohio State. You grew up in Strongsville. That's 2 hours from Ohio State's main campus here in Columbus. You were a lot closer, though, to Akron and Toledo. What influenced your decision to come to Ohio State instead of staying home and going to one of those schools, for example?
I've actually made it, I guess from the north side of Columbus. I know I've made it home in an hour. When I was living in Columbus, in an hour and 40 minutes, and maybe from I was trying to think of campus, it might be just inside of 2 hours to Strongsville. But I was just one of those kids growing up in Northeast Ohio. The era in which I grew up in Northeast Ohio, I'm like a lot of kids that you just have this great love affair with sports. You love playing it, you love watching it, and jokingly, if you're a product of Cleveland of the 80s, you didn't even get to experience winning, so you really love sports. But I was just one of those kids. I always loved Ohio State. My uncle actually went to Ohio State, so I remember visiting him when I was in grade school, and just him telling me stories of Keith Byers and Chris Spielman and Chris Carter. And I remember starting to watch football games because I was a football nut like a lot of kids who grew up in Northeast Ohio. And, from that point on, I fell in love with Ohio State, and really there was no other place I wanted to go to after that.
So you would say you credit him as being the most influential person in your decision to go to Ohio State?
Well, I think it's also the environment. Like I went to Catholic school at Holy Name High School in Parma Heights. So it's you grow up with this weird hodgepodge of a bunch of Buckeyes and a bunch of Notre Damers for no other reason because they're Catholic. I'm not trying to take a cheap shot at anyone in your family either. But you grow up in this odd mix of people that like different colleges for different reasons. And, a lot of my best friends were all Ohio State loyalists. So it's just one of those things. I have a high school age daughter right now, and I always tell her I couldn't imagine going to a school that doesn't have, doesn't prioritize sports, that doesn't have, the connectivity, the school pride that emanates from being a part of a school with a big sports program, I think is powerful and important. So, when you add it all up, there's a bunch of reasons, but, I grew up, I was just one of those kids that wanted to go to the big flagship institution in my home state, and Ohio State was that place for me. And it's one of those decisions that, like any college decision, it'll have a profound impact on you. It'll always have a bigger impact on you than you could ever imagine when you're coming out of high school.
In last week's episode, we talked with Luciano Pacoda and Coach Mike McLaughlin of my dad's alma mater, St. Ignatius. And so through them and what I've heard from Dad through my 18, almost 19 years of existence is that, that atmosphere of a Catholic school where everybody likes a different school for different reasons. I grew up a Notre Dame fan. Dad's family lived in Illinois. And so on their way through, they'd stop halfway point, South Bend. And as Catholics, we love that school. So and that's another reason I'm new to the Ohio State University. I've been a Buckeye since March.
I'm actually a big fan of Coach McLaughlin. I've known him for a long time. So one of the great soccer coaches, correct, in the history of the state of Ohio. Yeah. 33
Coach of the Year awards from various organizations. It's a fantastic show if you haven't
watched it. And just sent his oldest son to Notre Dame.
Yeah. Over your time working at Ohio State, you were promoted 3 times, starting at one of the lower levels and then advancing to the top position there, the Senior Associate Athletics Director for External Relations. What a name that is. What were some of your responsibilities in that role, and how do you think it helped you become, a better professional?
Well, I started as a student of all things, working in the sports information office. So I was fortunate to, I tell everyone I was, born in Youngstown, raised in Cleveland, but I grew up at Ohio State. So fortunately for me, I started working in the athletic department in a time where this is the mid to late 90s, in which the athletics department started to grow and started to change and started to really modernize itself as an athletic department. So fortunately for me, I got my foot in the door in the media relations office, and I did that for a couple of years. And the AD, like any great boss, he saw something in me that maybe I didn't even see myself, and he thought I'd be a great fit for fundraising. And he switched me up in fundraising in the early 2000s, and that changed the trajectory of my career. And then the current AD, Gene Smith, came in 2005 and took me under his wing and taught me everything I needed to know about how to lead and how to be an athletic director and how to be the best person you're supposed to be. And that gave me an opportunity to put me in a place where I could go see if I could do the job. So I've been fortunate to, I was fortunate to have learned in a pretty nurturing environment at Ohio State. That you're surrounded by these extraordinary coaches, you're surrounded by these extraordinary student athletes. The 2 ADs I worked for were 2 of the best of all time, and arguably Gene Smith is the best of all time. So it's in terms of your upbringing, in terms of how you're taught in terms of college athletics. Everyone's background is unique to themselves, and I'm always feel fortunate about the people that I've always been able to surround that I was able to surround myself with at Ohio State.
And while you were working professionally at Ohio State, you made the decision to go back to school. It led you to Duquesne. What led you to that decision, and why Duquesne?
Well, I knew I wanted. There was a certain point where I knew I wanted to be an athletic director. Actually, let me rephrase it. There was a point when you grow up and when you really take a hard look in the mirror and you understand that you owe it to yourself to try to figure out how you can be the best you're supposed to be and go down that journey and go down that road. So for me, I knew that I needed to go back and figure out how to get an advanced degree. Just understanding our industry and the importance of that, but also to push myself to see if I could do it at a time while you're carrying a job. And I think at that point we had 2 kids, or just had our second kid. So it's it's just one of those things that once you set some goals, some personal goals to try to go down this path to be the best you can be, it was one of those things that I just put on the list. All right, this is something I needed to go try to do and go try to prove to myself.
It was one of those things that grew the ceiling, right? I have a bachelor's degree. My top is here. If I get a master's, my top could be here. Right?
Well, yeah, in hindsight, yes.
Just expanded the career.
Absolutely. But it was, like I said, it was more just about, hey, I knew I needed an advanced degree if I wanted to raise the ceiling in my career. And, fortunately for me, I was able to get it done. I don't think I'm not that motivated to go back to school now to get anything beyond that. But it's a challenge to try to balance family, work, and school all at the same time.
And that advancing in your career ended up leading you to Boca Raton, Florida. What adjustments did you find moving almost 1,100 miles away from Ohio to Florida?
The size and scope of the department are very different, but you knew that going into it. For me, just having spent my entire life in Ohio, I think that was the greatest challenge for me. But like I said, even where I'm at today, the goal is to try to figure out how you're supposed to be the best you can be. To do that, a lot of times in life, you got to push yourself and get out of your comfort zone. I knew that I was in a very comfortable place at Ohio State, but I also knew that if I wanted to grow and be the best I'm supposed to be, that I needed to see if I could have any type of success outside of my comfort zone, and also to see how you can handle the failures outside your comfort zone. So that happened to be the opportunity that came when me and my wife looked at the job. It was one of those things. We made a family decision that, hey, if this is where we're supposed to be, let's go make the most of it. And that took us out of the state of Ohio and put us at least in the warm weather of Florida for a couple of years. I tell them when the winters are real there, it's definitely a different place to be during the wintertime.
And that's something that I struggle with is getting out of my comfort zone, but it's with food. I'm a very picky eater. I like to use the phrase, it's called your comfort zone for a reason. But what I kind of took from that was, you can grow the comfort zone and then you get more things that you enjoy from that, right?
Well, I think you also go down this road of self-discovery, because when things aren't easy, you kind of go back to, it's like you're in your freshman year, things aren't easy. You're going to school during a pandemic. Knowing you enough, I know you're relying on your mom and your dad and your support system, and you're also smart enough to, hey, you're going to put yourself out there and try to do this podcast and try to move your career forward and take advantage of an opportunity. And a lot of people look at excuses why not to try to do something like this, but Supi here is trying to figure out ways to get things done. So I think like anything in life, it's like the easy thing to do would be just be a freshman. Keep your nose down, keep your head down, and try to just survive. But a lot of times the challenge and the opportunity to go push yourself ultimately is where you want to take your life, because at the end of the day you're going to be given a bunch of challenges. So how you respond to them is really, it's like what Coach Meyer always says, what E plus R equals O. It's event response equals outcome. Yeah. So.
Got it right here on my wristband.
So you got to go out and do it.
In scarlet and gray.
Yeah, because this. You could make that an easy equation by staying in your own comfort zone and not trying anything. You could come out with every outcome positive, but that's not what life is about. It's about, hey, stuff happens. Life gets more complex and challenging, and you got to be able to figure out how to how are you going to respond to it, and you're going to have to live with the outcomes and make sure that everything's a learning opportunity. So. Hey, so if food is your comfort zone, what's your favorite restaurant in Columbus or favorite place around campus?
Adriatico's, 10th Avenue, Neal and 10th, baby. I'm there a lot more than I should be. Buckeye Donuts is a close second, but you can't beat Adriatico.
The best pizza in the country is Adriatico's.
I think so. My girlfriend will disagree with me. She says it's not real pizza, but she grew up outside of New York. So
does she think any pizza in Columbus is real pizza?
No. She says real pizza does not leave New York City.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. I'll have to put it to the test.
It's her loss if she doesn't enjoy Adriatico's.
Yeah, exactly.
And you had like the newer one. When I was in school, was the dumpy one that was like the size of my office is probably bigger than with the old Adriatico's.
So I'm very passionate about pizza. I don't plan on hiding it. I make no effort to hide that. You're very passionate about athletics. I'm sure you ran into several other passionate people while at Florida Atlantic. Who were some of the ones that you most remember?
Well, I think I would. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that too much. I mean, like anything, when I look at my time at FAU, actually the baseball coach had a great impact on me because he's from that area. He's built one of the best baseball programs in the country. He's had other opportunities to leave, but that's home for him. And you see all the little things he does to have a championship program that that typically makes the NCAA tournament year after year, typically wins a conference championship there. But, the nice thing about college athletics is what you see, and you see it from where you're at too. That passion is not singular. Like there's a bunch of people that are passionate about the industry, passionate about the job, passionate about serving student athletes. So it's that makes these types of jobs fun, because you get to be around those types of people that want to serve and want to impact others and are very passionate about it. But like any athletic department, there's going to be a good density of those people. I've been fortunate to have been surrounded by them for a very long period of time.
And going forward in that, something motivated you to go to Washington State, leaving warm Florida to go back up north to the cold weather. What prompted that change?
It was time and opportunity. We had done a lot at FAU when I arrived. I think we had one winning program. We were woefully behind academically. There were just a bunch of things that needed to get done there. And, after 5 years, you looked in the mirror and said, all right, we've done what we needed to do. And, what's the next opportunity out there? And, the president here has a big time reputation in college athletics and in higher ed. And once I got to meet with him and convince him that I was going to be the next best AD for him, it just seemed like the right opportunity. The nice thing about Washington State, and I see why they may have thought I would be a good fit here, is because we're in Eastern Washington, so it feels very much like Ohio. So I think it's been a really good fit for me and my family. We were looking we're motivated by where we raise our daughter. So it just for a bevy of reasons, it was the right opportunity. And it's been 3 years. I think right about now is about my 3-year anniversary here at Washington State. It's been a fun 3 years. This is a very special place with passionate alums and people that care about the institution. And, our student athletes continue to do extraordinary things here. And, we've been able to retain a bunch of high level coaches and bring in a bunch of high level coaches and do a lot of different things here. So it's been really a fun and rewarding 3 years, and really fired up about where we're poised to for the next couple of years. Because with the coaches we have and the recruiting they've done and the quality of student athletes we have here, we feel really good about being able to, make some noise, and especially in our conference over the next couple of years.
But of course, fun does not always mean easy. And this year especially, you were presented with one of the toughest challenges that an AD can face, that anyone can face, with the COVID-19 pandemic. Walk me through what it was like with dealing with something that had never been, seen before, and how you were able to keep athletes at Washington State safe and satisfied. Because we saw, here at Ohio State, for example, what the university thought was safe didn't satisfy the players at all. And how did you navigate that tender balance of safety and satisfaction?
Well, like anything, you have, like when any type of adversity hits, you gotta rely on your team, and really your core values as an institution or as a human being. So once the pandemic hit, we're fortunate, especially out west in the Pac-12. Arguably some of the best scientists and disease prevention experts in the world reside in these Pac-12 institutions. We relied on the science and the data, and we built protocols that we felt like were going to be some of the best in the country and provide a level, as much safety and protection for our student athletes as possible. And we also have a high number of student athletes that want to go play sports, that are here because they have a passion for sports and have a passion for academics and want to blend the two together and go get degrees and go compete at the highest level. And they're competitive young people that have a lot of goals. So there's a sense of obligation to try to come up with a platform in which they can, could participate in their sports. And, in hindsight, it's been, it's been arduous for everybody in the department, most especially our student athletes and our coaches. But the rewards are, hey, I think we all are a little bit more grateful for every opportunity we have to go compete and have games. And, we'll get through this. And the hope is that we come out of it, a better society, but definitely a better athletic department when we get out on the other side of this.
I think we can all agree, the listeners and I, from what we've heard over this episode, you care, truly and deeply about the athletes at Washington State. So in that light, tell me about the Unleash program that you created at Washington State, what that's meant to do, and why you decided to create that.
Well, we did it. It's our staff. We decided to do a strategic plan. When I arrived here, I guess in 2018, we looked at it, for a couple of reasons. One is I am a person that works better with a plan. Also knowing that, hey, it's a really good opportunity for us to kind of get feedback, for me to get feedback on where we're at as a department, but for us collectively to set some goals and to create a plan to go achieve those goals. And like anything in life, you can do a lot of great things if you unify, and it's a lot easier to unify when everyone agrees to what the mission is and what our why is and what our purpose is. So fortunately for me, this athletic department is filled with a lot of people that care about our student athletes, have a loyalty to Washington State. This is home. This is their alma mater. This is a place where they want to go impact. And, if anything, in hindsight, getting it done before the pandemic that we didn't know was coming actually was to our benefit, because we have a living, breathing document that reminds us, hey, when things were good, this is what we were planning for. So I know we have to adapt and we have to adjust to what's going on in the pandemic, but these are things that we felt like at a specific time and place would set us forward. So we kind of have a roadmap on where we want to get to. We'll have to get through this phase of the pandemic with budgeting and how that's been impacting us. But like anything, it served us well because it unified this department. It allowed us to redefine our mission statement, allowed us to identify what our core values are. And firsthand, like everybody, when adversity hits, you go to your core values. So that's been healthy. And as we continue to plan for 2021 and beyond, we have a roadmap, and we'll try to stay as close to that roadmap as possible.
And I think that's one of the most important things that you can ask is why. And knowing your why and knowing the reason behind, why you're doing something, I think is powerful. And that shows, that helps motivate you, helps lead. This is why I'm doing this. This is who I'm doing this for, whatever that motivation is. It helps you invest more into it in a way that nothing else can, I think, at least.
Absolutely. And like I said, when there's something, it's why you love being around sports. It's why, it's why the Browns did so well this year is when people unify. I mean, when people set aside their personal goals for the group's goals, I mean, it's a pretty powerful thing. And, you see it by and large, what happens when people aren't unified. We see that in our country every day. But sports give people hope. And when you see these teams come together and do something extraordinary, it's literally because people of diverse backgrounds decided, hey, we have a singular goal and we're willing to sacrifice to achieve that goal. And along the way, when you go achieve that goal, you actually inspire people to kind of do the same, which is a powerful tool.
And that's why I think that he is the future of the Cleveland Browns. But we can talk about that later.
Got no choice
you're a big
at this
Cleveland
point.
guy. I know. Yeah,
got no choice.
I know. But we'll talk about that at a later day. The last thing I'll leave you with is, and I'm reading this because I want to make sure I get this right, is we hear about the College Football Playoff Committee and the NCAA Rules Committee, all of these prestigious committees that me as a guy who's a casual fan as much as I am a host, I always think of these as like the secret society. I like to consider myself a comic book nerd. And it's like the Court of Owls in the Batman comics, this untouchable elite society that nobody knows. They're anonymous. But then I look at you and you serve on several of them. The NCAA Division I Council, responsible for the day-to-day decisions of Division I, the Strategic Vision and Planning Committee, as well as the NCAA Division I Committee on Competitive Safeguards and Medical Aspects of Sports. How did you become involved with these? And how does your, life experience up to this point help you contribute meaningfully to these discussions?
Well, like anything in life, you always want to figure out how you can serve and assist others. I know early in my career, Gene Smith challenged me to get involved as much possible with external groups to try to help. So, the D1 Council, I'm the representative of the Pac-12 conference. That's probably been half a year now. So all of these emanated from that. So it's an opportunity to try to represent our conference, to try to make decisions for the greater good. Our conference always has a position on things, no different than the Big Ten does. But you're also trying to figure out how do you best serve your student athletes and how do you best move forward college athletics. So, if anything, I'm learning a lot being a part of these committees. It's been a great opportunity for me to sit and listen and kind of get a better understanding of everything from a governance standpoint to a rural standpoint to safeguard standpoint. A lot of expertise in these rooms, and college athletics is an important part of our country. We're the only country in the world that commingles education and sports. You go over to Europe. I mean, it's all the club system, but here we decided to commingle the two, and college athletics is woven into the fabric of this country. It's an important part of. It's a huge part of the institution I'm at. It's a huge part of the institution you're at, and we're caretakers of these, and it's good to be a part of things that that help keep college athletics hopefully moving in the positive direction. Easier said than done.
Yeah, sports in school dates back all the way to the late 19th century with Harvard and Yale, the first two
Absolutely.
schools to have sports. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mark Hoger, for teaching me that last semester in history of sports in 19th century America. Pat, it has been fantastic talking with you. It was an absolute honor to discuss this. I hope we'll stay in touch for the next year when the Browns make the Super Bowl, and I'm putting that on record because I think that we will be fine there.
I'm much older than you, so I know not to do that. I'm sure your dad has probably told you the same thing. Those two, the Cleveland and the word Super Bowl, is hard to put in the same sentence when you've been through the totality of being a Browns fan your whole life.
I guess I'm still young, naive, and hopeful. Who knows? I did see one little picture that said, "Where will the Browns be? Where will the Browns be?" When they watched the Super Bowl or for the Super Bowl this year, and then it had "at home with Baker Mayfield." And
you have a whole different perspective than I would have at your age, because you've watched Ohio State have unprecedented success. If you're a Cavs fan, you watch the Cavs win. The Browns struggle, but at least they're winning. The Indians have been competitive every year, so it's a very different lens. You look at sports, which is fun. I think you see the fun parts of sports.
I got to see the run to the World Series in 2016 and then the disappointment of dropping the 3-1. But yeah, my history of Cleveland athletics is shorter, but I would say brighter than theirs.
Brighter, so. Absolutely. Yeah, because I got the same one and it's longer.
It's full of a lot more heartache than mine is. Yes. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
Hey, good luck with the podcast. This is awesome. You're doing this. Keep your foot on the gas pedal. Keep trying to meet people. Keep trying to network, Caleb. Good things are going to happen for you.
Tune in next week for another episode of Hang On Supi. The podcast releases on scarletandgraysportsradio.com and on the SoundCloud, the SGSR SoundCloud page on Wednesday. And the video version of the episode releases on IGTV and YouTube on Friday. So there's two ways to listen, whichever one you like to do best. Be sure to subscribe to our channels and follow us on Instagram at HangOnSupi. But until next time, I'm Caleb Supi Spinner. That's the show. I'm out of here.